Okay, so in this video we're going to go through lesson 7, which is typographical design, and this is how the Photoshop CC classroom in a book. So the first thing you do is open up the working files, so the files you're going to use for this assignment. So in Photoshop, go up to Files and go down to Browse and Bridge. Once that opens, go over to Lessons, click on the Lessons folder, and then go to Lesson 7. And you see we're going to work with the same image that we just created in lesson 6, but they do have a new start image here, so I'm going to go ahead and double click on that and open up that image. Now as soon as this image opens, what I want to do is I want to go back up to File and I want to go to Save As, and I want to save this as a working image. So underneath lesson 7, I'm just going to go ahead and save that as 07 working. Press save. Then once that's saved, you want to go up to this little icon right here, click on the down arrow, and this is your workspace, and you want to go and click on graphic and web, and that's going to change this workspace around a little bit so that we're set for this lesson. Alright, so we're going to want to add a little bit of positioning on our image here. And we're going to do that by adding rulers. Now if you don't already have the ruler showing here, you would go up to View and then down to Rulers, and you click on that to get that check mark, or press Command R for rulers. Now our image is pretty much the center, but just to make sure I'm going to put Command 0, and that's going to center it up and give it full size or full screen for this particular workspace. All you have to do is bring your cursor over to the left or to the top, wherever the rulers are, and you click and hold down your left mouse button and drag it. You'll see that you have a line here, and you can see that it has numbers there. You want to go to about 4 1/4, and once it's right there, you let go, and we have our center line as a guide. So we're going to want to add some type to this cover, and the type will come in as its own text layer. And so we want to make sure that layer goes above our background layer here. So I'm going to click on the background layer and highlight that. That way it puts the type above the background layer but behind the model layer. So you'll find out that when we start typing, it will go behind the model. The text will actually appear behind the model. So I'm going to come over here and click on my horizontal text type tool, which is this one here. And you see that the cursor changes to a text. But before we do any typing, we want to change a few things here. So up at the top here, here's all of our menu options for our text. So right now we have it on Time New Romans, and what we want to do is look for Minion Pro, and because they're alphabetically, you go down here, so we have Minion Pro here, and click on that. Want it to be regular, and again we're following instructions in the book, so they ask for it to be regular. In our type, we want 144 points. Now you may not have 144 here in your drop down menu, so just type in 144 and that will give the size that you want. And then over here in the character panel, which we have to come over here into the character panel. Now we could have also done all of those changes here, but in the character panel we want to type in a tracking value of 100. So our tracking is right here. If you hold your cursor over that, you see that says set tracking for selected characters, and we're going to change that to 100. Notice that this changed the Minion Pro here once I typed in 144 here. It changes to everything we had up here. Now once we have all of that set up, we want to just click any place on our picture, and you see that it gets rather big, and we want to type in digital. Now because I want digital to be all capitals here, I can't actually come on over here and click on this button right here, and this is going to make everything capital. I'm going to get rid of the small cap there, but I want everything to be capital. So now I'm just going to type in digital. Now as you can see in my case here, I'm going to go ahead and move this on over here to digital right there. Now you see in my case that the lettering came in as white, and that's because over here I have my coloring as white. So I clicked on my move tool here to move it. I'm going to click back on my text type, And notice that when my text is here, my cursor is here, I have a line with a little square outline. But when I come into the text, notice how it changes to just a single line. So when it does that, I can double click on here and I can highlight all of this digital. And so now what I can do is I can come on over here to character, either here or here, because that all works for this layer. And I'm going to click on the color and bring it on over to black and change that to entirely black. And I'll just click off that. And so now you can see it's all black, which is what the book wants you to have. Now, you could, and I probably should have, changed it to black before I started typing, but I didn't realize that I had white. So if you do the same mistake, whatever color it may be, just go ahead and highlight it all and change it the color that you need. Now when you select all of your text, what you do is highlight, just drag across and select all of your text. And you come up here and you start moving around. Notice how the font changes as you go over. So it gives you a visual as to how that's going to change. So what we want to do now is we want to go down to Myriad Pro Semi-Bold. So again, I'm going to scroll down and you can see that you may not have as many fonts as I do, because over time you build up some fonts. You'll build up quite a few fonts. But so down to Myriad Pro, I'm going to click on that and you see that it changed this to digital. And what I want to do is I want to click on the move tool again, because now I want to center that up. And notice that my line is green, my center line is green, and then once I get this word centered up on it, it changes to a fuchsia color. Now it just takes, I'm just moving too much. So once that changes that color, that means that we're squared up or centered on our page right there. So right now you want to save your work at this point. Now our digital headline here looks okay, but we do want to add a little bit of character style to that. So the way that we do that is I'm going to go up to File and I'm going to go to Open, and it opens up in my less than 7 folder, and I want to click on the circuit board TIFF here and press Open. And notice that when it opens, it actually opens up in a separate tab. So just go up to Windows, go to Arrange and 2 up vertically, and now both those tabs are side by side. Make sure that the circuit board tab is selected, and you'll see the circuit board here as a background. And what you do is you can left click with your mouse, hold down the shift and drag that onto your digital cover, and then let go, and you'll see that it centers it up right on there because we held the shift down. So now that we have that layer in with our working PSD, we can go ahead and close out this circuit board. We don't need that anymore. But our circuit board is rather large here, so we want to change that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it on my move tool. Now you can go up to Edit, down to Transform, down to Scale, and click on that, and you see that these lines come all the way around here, and just by holding down the Alt, you can scale it down. It keeps it in the center of the image. So as you scale it down, it scales down in the center, keeps the center line where it should be, and make sure that everything lines up correctly. Once I've scaled it to the width of my cover, all I want to do is just drag it on up here to the upper portion of my cover. Now I want to go ahead and double click on this layer 1. That way I can change the name to circuit board. Because we do want to keep everything organized over here so that we know what is what. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a clipping mask on the circuit board. A clipping mask means that this particular image is going to follow whatever this is below it. A couple ways to do that. You can hold down your Alt, and as you drag your mouse in between, you see that you get the clipping mask symbol right there. The other way to do that in this layer is I can right click my mouse on that layer and I can go down to Create Clipping Mask. And when I do that, you see that it creates this arrow to the next one below. That means it's going to clip this on top of whatever this is, which is our text. And you see that we have the digital text here, and the circuit board is clipped to it. And you see that when I turn off the circuit board, the digital text is still there. All it is just clipped to it. It's just basically cut out for the text, to duplicate the text cut out. Now this looks good, but it looks rather flat, so we want to change the look of this. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you select the text layer, the digital text layer. Make sure that is selected, because we're going to add some style to it. We're going to create an inner shadow. So I'm going to click on the FX here, and down at the bottom is a little FX, and I'm going to go to inner shadow and click on that. Now our layer style comes up here, and inner shadow is selected, and you want to have multiply. You want to make sure that the opacity is right around 48%. I have 47 there. Let's see, there 48. Distance 18. Choke, leave it at 0. Most time it will be on 0. Just leave it there. Size, we're going to move it to 16. And these are the numbers that you want to create the effect that we're looking for. And I'll press OK. And you see that now our digital has this rounded effect around it. And that looks kind of nice now. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to File. Oops. Go up to File and save my work. So that way I won't lose any of this. Okay, now we want to add some speech so it looks like it's coming out of this young lady's mouth here, and we're going to do that with paths. So the first thing you want to do before you do anything is make sure that you select the model. Get it off the text right now, get it to model. And you might have a path tab there, but if you don't, just go up to Windows and go down to paths and click on that, and that will automatically bring that forward. With the speech path here, go ahead and just click on that layer and highlight it, and you'll see that we have this squiggly little line coming out, and this is what the text is going to follow. So if not already, click on your text tool, come up to the character area here, and where you got Myriad Pro, make sure it's on that, make sure it is on regular. We want to change the points to 14, and we want to change our tracking down to 10, -10. Click on the color swatch right here, and it'll bring up this color picker panel, and click in the upper left corner here to change it to white. Click OK. Now we'll create some white text. If it's not already selected, make sure that the capital all caps is selected here, and come on over here to the squiggly line, and notice that when your cursor gets at a certain point on that line, you get a curved line going through the cursor, and that's telling you that it's going to follow that path. So get it somewhat close to her mouth. I almost forgot one other thing. My dog reminded me. Click on this text right here so that we align the text to the right. Now I'm going to come over to her mouth again, get my squiggly line. Click there, and it's automatically selected, so you don't do anything else. You can just start typing, and we're going to type in "What's new with games?" Question mark. And then what you want to do is you want to highlight games here. Just highlight the part right there. So I clicked and dragged across there. I'm coming back over here to the character panel. I'm going to use my drop down arrow and make that part bold so that we have that section of our text will be bold there. Want to click back to the layers panel here and make sure you're on layer 1, and you see that when you click on it, it says "What's new with games?" and we have "What's new with games." You see that's bold there. I'm going to right click on that layers panel, and I'm going to duplicate that layer, and when it comes up here, I want to change "What's new with game" copy to "What's new with music?" Question mark. Now whenever you can, you want to duplicate layers that you're going to do again and again. Instead of making the layer over and over, it's much easier just to duplicate it and make that adjustment. So we can't see that layer because it's directly on top and it says the exact same thing. I'm going to take my cursor and drag over games right here, and now I'm going to type music. And what I want to do now is I want to move that layer. So we're going to go on up to edit and then down to free transform path. We want to use the path to move it. Click on that and you see that we have our path is selected here. Now once your cursor changes to a curved arrow there, you can see it there, you can see it on the side here, but we're going to go up here to this part and change that curved arrow. I'm going to left click, hold down my mouse and start dragging up till it gets to right around 15%. There we go. And then I'm going to move my mouse to the center here, not directly center here where it changes to the center point. I'm going to move someplace inside this square, either on either side. Click and now drag this on up till it's a little bit higher. Right about there, and I'm going to let go of that. And I'm going to click on this check mark up here to accept that. And once I click on that, you see what's new with music. Now I have the music, pretty close to her, and I didn't realize it'd be that close because I'm adjusting this little squiggly line when I made the movement. So I can go over to my move tool here and I can click and drag that out a little bit. Just drag it right about there. And I'm going to click back on my text tool, so that's set up again. And now we're going to come on over here to what's new with music and we're going to duplicate that layer. And now we're going to type what's new with phones. And I'm going to click OK. So now I have my third one. And that's going to be above my music one because I duplicated the music one. So the phone one is going to be above the music. So now I'm just going to highlight music here and type phone. Or phones, I should say. And then I'm going to go back up to edit and down to free transform path. And again, my path, I'm just going to click on this bottom one here once I become a curved arrow, and I'm going to go down 15 degrees the other way, so it's going to be a minus 15 degrees this time, and get as close as I can right there. Oh, that is right on. So I'm going to click and drag this down and move that line down here. And I'm actually going to have to go a little, I'm going to have to go 30 degrees actually on this one because it was already pointing 15 degrees up on that particular one that I worked on. If I'd have worked on the game one again, I would have only had to gone 15 degrees. So that looks about right. And again, you can look at, you can eyeball this. I'm going to go up and click accept. And you see what's new with phones is right there. So again, I can make some adjustments here, like what's new with music. I may want to adjust that a little bit, so I'm going to click on what's new with music's layer and click on my move tool and just take and move that a little bit, and I'm going to show transform controls, and I'll click on that and come to the outside and come to the outside here and adjust the music down a little bit. There we go. See that that all looks good to me, and I'm going to accept that and click off the transform and go back to my text layer. So now I have these three new layers showing her asking questions about what's happening. So the curved line or the path that this text had followed looks cool, but we're actually going to change the words a little bit to warp them also, so it looks like they're flowing in an unusual shape, and just add a little bit more character to it. So the first thing I want to do is zoom in a little bit here, and I'll click on my zoom tool and get a little bit closer so that I can see this young lady and the games here, and I want to click on my game layer. So I want to right click on my game layer and I want to go to warp text and click on that. So the warp text dialog box comes up, and with this down arrow I can pick a number of different things. We want to go with wave, and once you select wave, by adjusting these settings here, you can see that it will change the way the text looks, or the way that the text expands and contracts as it moves through that particular wave. So you want to set the bend up to be about 33%, and then the horizontal distortion minus 12, so just press the minus, minus 23 on that, and the vertical distortion we're going to have at 5. And you can see now that this looks like it's sort of contracting down here, and it gives it a wave sort of look to the actual text now. So click OK for that, and we're just going to do the same thing with all the other ones. Click, go down to wave, and type in the same numbers. And click OK, and you can see that this looks a little better than just a constant size on our words here. So the last one is the phone. Right click, go down to warp text, press the down arrow, go down to wave, and I want to put in 33, negative 23. And again, the book has decided that these are the numbers that you use to give this effect. You know, you can make the effect a little bit more or less, you know, depending on what you want. But you know, that's the book's recommendation, and it does look pretty good with those numbers. But you do want to make sure that they're all about the same. That's also important. Click OK. And what you probably want to do at this point is go ahead and save this. Now, next thing we're going to want to do is set up some guidelines where we're going to put some text in. So I'm going to hold down my space bar and my cursor becomes a hand, and I'm just going to move this over a little bit so I can see the top portion of my magazine, and I'm actually going to zoom out just a little bit. Well, I guess that's as much as I can zoom in or zoom out. Yeah, so we'll go with this part right here. That way you can see everything. So what I want to do is I want to drag. So I'm going to left click on the ruler on the left side and drag another line here and bring this over to about 1/4 of an inch in. So it's 8.5. So I want to go about 8 1/4. And that's roughly 8 1/4. And then from the top down, I'm going to bring a line from here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to left click in the ruler above and bring a line here down to roughly 2 inches. Right there. And these are going to be my guidelines. Okay, so now we have our guidelines in place. We're actually going to place some text in this area, and this is generally going to be the call outs or the titles that are provided to the graphic design artist by editors or other people like that. We want to make a space for that text to fit into, and the way that we're going to go about doing that is we're going to go up and select the move tool, and then go down here, and we have this little notepad down here, and when you click on it, when you double click on it, it opens up and it has some information there that we want to place on our cover here. So Command C or Control C, depending on which one you're working on, whether it's PC or Mac, is going to copy that, and then come over here and make sure that you select the model layer. You sort of want to be on that. That's going to make it a little easier to place the text above that. Come over here and click on the text tool, and what you want to do is align your cursor up in this upper right corner here, and then hold down the shift and then drag your square. Now you'll see that it's making a perfectly square. It keeps the ratios, but we actually want to change the size. Now we hold down the shift in the beginning to make sure that it starts a new text layer, that it won't grab any of the other text layers that are there. Once you start dragging it, you can let go, and now you can make adjustments as to how you want. So you want to bring it down to about the 8-inch mark and line it up on that line, at the left line there, your left guideline, and let go, and you'll see that you have some text in here already. Now press Command V, and you'll see that your text shows up in this alignment here. Now all the text comes in at the same size that it was saved at, which generally is off a word processor or something like that. Sometimes if you have problems with the text coming in keeping the format that it had before, when you go up to layer to edit, you can use the paste special right here, and that will allow you to paste without formatting coming in. So while we're still in our text layer here, or text tool, you're going to highlight these first three lines, which is the trend issue, and come on over here to the character panel, and we're going to still use the Myriad Pro, and we're going to keep it at regular, but we are going to change the font size up to 70. Now it has a 72, but your book calls for 70, so you can just type that in like I did here, and that creates a 70 point. And then leading is going to be 55 points, so we want to make that 55, and again it's not there for you to pull from, so you just type in 55. And then the tracking, we're going to put that at 50, so we'll see if we have a 50 here, which we do. We click the tracking at 50, make sure that's you know, is not minus 50 but 50, and we want to set our alignment to the right, so come up to the top there and make sure that this alignment here is set to the right, which it is. In our color, we want to be white, which it should be from the last one, so that's all good. Now leading, in case you're wondering, just determines the vertical space between lines, like how much space you got in between each of these lines here. Now that we have these, we want to come back and select the trend, because now we want to change this as opposed to these two here. And you can do that. You can change any selection of text as long as you highlight it. So we're going to leave everything the same up here. The only thing that we really want to change is we want to change it from regular to bold, so that we have a little bit different look here. So the trend issue, and change that style to bold. Now we want to change these other subheads down here, subtitles, to a different size font. So we're going to highlight all of those and going to keep the same font family and regular, and now we're going to change this to 22 points, and we look down and we see we don't have 22, so just double click, highlight it, type in 22 points to change that. And leading, we want to go ahead, and that leading here is, all you gotta do is just hold your cursor over, you can see that this is tracking, come on up here and leading right there. So click that down arrow there, and we're going to change that to 28. We see that we only have a 24. I clicked on that, changed to 24. I'm just going to type in 28 now to get it at 28. Our tracking, we're going to change to 0, so I'm just going to type in 0 there, and we're going to deselect all the caps, so that now we're going to have different, we're not going to have all of it being capitalized. Alright, so the text looks good, but it's all the same, but these right here should be a little bit different. These headers right here should be a little bit different. So we're going to select the what's hot. I'm going to select that what's hot first, and then I'm going to select the style to be bold because I want to separate it out of there. And we're going to come down to bold and click on that, and that's going to bold that a little bit, and we're going to change the font size up to 28. And again, we don't have a 28, but I'll click on 24, highlight, type in 28, and then click off that, and we see that we have a much bigger header on that. And we're going to do the same thing right here. We're just going to change this and use the exact same number. So we're going to go over here to bold, change it to bold, and we're going to just double click in the text and put 28 to change that. Now this all looks good, but it's all in white, and this trend is bold, so we want to change that trend. So we're going to highlight the trend here, and we're going to go up and we're going to click on the color, and we're going to change it to green. So we bring down our little slider here towards the green area, and you can click on the green. Now another thing you could do is you could actually come up here to one of these areas right here and click on that and select that green so that it matches in between there. Now the book just tells you to select the green, but by clicking, just using the eyedropper, bringing my mouse from here up to here, I can select on a green that I like, and I can get a little darker green or that brighter green. I think I like the brighter green actually, or I can even select the green from her glasses, which that's kind of a dull green. I don't like that so much, so I'm gonna go with the brighter green right here off this A, and that looks good, and I'm gonna select OK. And now you probably want to save your work at this point. So now we're going to add a little tag right up here. So we're going to come on over here to our rectangle tool, our rounded rectangle corner, and click and drag down roughly right about like that. And this doesn't have to be 100% exact, but you want to get it there close to there. Go over to the properties, and underneath the width you're going to type in 67 pixels on the width there. And then we're going to click on the color swatch here and go down to the pastel orange, which is right about there in the third row, and that gives us that pastel orange color right there. And then make sure that the fill is selected, is set to no color, which it should be. So in the properties panel right here, we're going to click on this link right here. By clicking on this, this allows us to change these corners to be different. So we want this bottom left corner to be 16. We want to give it more of a rounded edge, and you can see that it did that. The rest of them we're going to highlight and change them to 0 pixels, because we want them to be let me type back in. I erased too many. So we want them to be 0 pixels, so that the corners will be square, except for this one corner we want to be round. From here we want to go up to our move tool, grab that, and show transform controls, and we're going to drag the bottom of this down just about to that L right there, and move this on over so that it's closer to that line right there. Now you can see my digital might be a little bit different than what the book has, but this is where we want to set it up. We want to use this guideline to set that up, and in printing that would be important. Once this is where you want it, go ahead and click the accept transform, and I'll deselect the transform controls there so that we can see our little tag. So from here I've deselected this already, but if you hadn't done that, you can go up to select and press deselect, and that would deselect this tag of ours. Now over at the text tool, if you press and hold your left mouse button, you'll see that we have a vertical text type tool, and click on that. With our vertical text tool selected, I'm going to come over to my rounded triangle, get down to the bottom here, hold down the shift when I click to make sure I start a new layer and not select like the digital layer, and I want to type in vol 9. Come on up here to select and press all or command A, and that's going to select all of that text there. And now I want to change this to the following. I want it Myriad Pro, and I want a font size that is light or narrow. So we're going to look at condense right here. You can see that's a light and narrow font size there. Click on that one, and instead of 70 points I want to make this 15 points so that it's much smaller. And you can see that once I click off that and accepts it, it is much smaller. And I want to change my tracking to 10. There we go. And so now we have a much smaller number here that we can see, and we want to make sure also to change this color to black. And again, click on the color, come down to this bottom corner, click there, press OK, and now we're going to have a black font. So I'm going to click the check mark to accept that, and I'm going to go on up to my move tool and take and adjust this volume so that's in the center. And you can see these two lines line up that show me that's in the center of my piece that's underneath, which is my little tag here, and that's all lined up. And now I'm going to want to save this, so I will go up to File, and this time I'm going to put Save As, and I'm going to put Working Finish, and click OK. So that way it saves this as a separate file from the last one that I saved. And that's it. You now completed chapter 7 on typographic design.